Success in modern society. We're told it's about hustle culture and grinding 24/7. But what if the real reason most men fail has nothing to do with how hard they work and everything to do with what they're avoiding?
That's such an intriguing perspective, and it reminds me of some recent research showing that the average man spends nearly 6 hours daily on entertainment media alone. The numbers are pretty staggering when you think about it.
You know what's even more fascinating? Studies show that successful entrepreneurs spend an average of 3.2 hours per day in deep, focused work. That's it. But those hours are intentional, purposeful, and completely distraction free.
Hmm, so it's not about working more hours, but about how we're using the time we have?
Exactly. And here's what really gets me. We've created this society where being busy is seen as a badge of honor, but actual productivity, that's rare. I was looking at some data that showed the average office worker is only truly productive for about 2 hours and 23 minutes per day.
Well, that certainly puts things in perspective. And it ties into this larger pattern we're seeing of what you might call comfortable mediocrity.
Oh man, let's dig into that because it's crucial. The comfort trap is killing potential everywhere we look. You know, there's this fascinating psychological concept called hedonic adaptation. Basically, the more comfortable we get, the more we need to maintain that same level of satisfaction.
And I imagine this plays directly into why so many men stay stuck in unfulfilling careers and situations they know aren't serving them.
Precisely. The statistics on this are pretty eye opening. A Gallup poll showed that about 85% of people worldwide are actively disengaged or just going through the motions at work. But here's what's really interesting: only about 12% actually do anything to change the situation.
So, what's stopping them? Is it really just fear of discomfort?
Well, it's actually a perfect storm of factors. First, you've got this biological programming that makes us naturally risk averse. Our brains are literally wired to avoid uncertainty. Then you add in social media constantly showing us carefully curated success stories, making people feel like if they can't achieve overnight success, why bother?
That reminds me of some research about decision making under uncertainty. The data shows that successful people actually make decisions about 40% faster than average performers, even with incomplete information.
You know what's fascinating about that? It's not that they're making better decisions necessarily, they're just making them. They're taking action while others are still planning, still waiting for the perfect moment that never comes.
Speaking of taking action, let's talk about this concept of valuable skills. The market data here is pretty clear.
Oh man, this is where it gets really interesting. The World Economic Forum recently reported that 50% of all employees will need reskilling by 2025. But here's the kicker: less than 15% of men actively invest in learning new high income skills.
That gap between market demand and personal development is pretty striking.
And you know what makes it even more fascinating? The barrier to entry for learning these skills has never been lower. You can literally learn coding, digital marketing, or data analysis for free online. Yet most men will spend hundreds of hours mastering the latest video game instead.
Well, that brings up an interesting point about how we value our time. The average American spends about $1,200 per year on streaming services and gaming.
Right. And for that same amount, you could get certified in several high income skills. But it goes deeper than just money. It's about identity. Many men have built their entire self image around being comfortable, around avoiding risk and challenge.
That's such a shift from historical norms, isn't it? When you think about how previous generations of men were defined by their ability to overcome challenges.
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting about that. Testosterone levels in men have dropped by about 1% per year since the 1980s. Scientists believe it's partly due to our increasingly sedentary, comfortable lifestyles.
So we're literally becoming biologically softer.
In many ways, yes. But here's the thing, it's reversible. Studies show that when men start challenging themselves physically and mentally, their testosterone levels can increase by up to 25% within just a few weeks.
That physical mental connection seems really crucial here.
It is, and it ties into something even bigger, this concept of anti fragility. Things that actually get stronger when exposed to stress and disorder. Our ancestors understood this intuitively, but we've lost touch with it.
Well, that brings up an interesting question about how we build that kind of resilience in today's world.
So here's what's fascinating about modern resilience, it's not about being tough all the time. Research shows that the most successful men actually practice something called strategic discomfort. They intentionally put themselves in challenging situations, but they're selective about it.
That's such a different approach from the hustle 24/7 mentality we often hear about.
Exactly. And the data backs this up. A study of high performers showed they typically work in focused 90-minute blocks, followed by deliberate recovery periods. It's not about grinding yourself down, it's about strategic stress and strategic recovery.
That's quite a paradigm shift from what most people think success requires.
And that's really the key takeaway here. Success isn't about some magical transformation or working yourself to death. It's about making intentional choices, embracing strategic discomfort, and consistently investing in your growth. The path is actually simpler than most people think. It's just not easy.
That's a powerful way to wrap this up. Simple, but not easy.
Exactly. And maybe that's the most important truth of all. The gap between where most men are and where they could be isn't about capability or opportunity. It's about choices. Daily choices between comfort and growth, between excuses and action, between mediocrity and excellence.